All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started and talk about buying your first home. Exciting times, right? Any of you guys thought about buying a first home already? You've tried it? You tried it? Okay, thought about it? You thought about it? Okay. What are some of your fears?
Credit.
What?
Credit. My credit.
Credit. That is a fear. That can be a fear. Well, we're going to talk a little bit about credit today and about how some of the things that you can do to actually help yourself with this, that you can either involve us and we can help you and give you some orientation or some counseling on it, or some stuff that you can actually do on your own. There is a sheet in this here that we're going to talk about a little bit that actually does give you a good breakdown on how credit works, and we can talk a little bit more about that as we go through. Just to let you know, when I bought my first house, my credit wasn't the greatest either. And so it does happen. Life comes at you hard. And I'll tell you my story a little bit more as we go along. So any other thoughts as you were thinking about buying your first house? Affording, that is a big deal. And I'll share a little bit about what I did with mine because it was a little crazy situation. I bought a house that had been sitting for a while, sitting for about 50 years. So it was an abandoned house. Probably not the best way to go, but I'll tell you the story more as we go along through the process. Because my first house needed a little bit of work, and it needed more than just love and lipstick. Let's put it that way. It needed a whole lot more than that. Any other thoughts? Because we want to try to address everything that's on your mind this morning and make sure that we get you set up for success, whether it's today, next week, next month, or next year. And so this is a process. It's not something that buying your first house can go very quickly, can go easily. Sometimes it does, but sometimes it takes some preparation. And so we want to really make sure that we're setting you up for success and that we're helping you get and accomplish the goals of home ownership, because there's nothing like owning your own space. There's nothing like it. And then long term, we want to teach you how to get to the point to where you actually create wealth through real estate, because it's a possibility for you to own multiple homes. It's a possibility for you to have a debt-free home. It is a possibility. It's just going to take some preparation, it's going to take some hard work, and it's going to help get across in the process. So as we get going today, we're going to actually start with a question here. I know this is not the traditional way of doing it, so pull out your phone, take a photo of the QR code, and I want to hear your answers. And we're going to share the answers here from everybody else in a little bit. And that is, by the way, that is a caricature of me. Do we look the same? So go ahead and do that real quick. And I think the question is, what is your superpower, right? Okay, so we have a few people that were very unimaginative last time. One was productive, one loved numbers. But we did have somebody who was really awesome that had telekinesis. Pretty cool, right? They can, like the guy on the Avengers who can move things around with his head and with his mind. Okay, read people's minds, heat vision, being a mom, that's a really good one too. That's a hard one. Uh-huh. Any other ones? Going through it. We're going to hit a refresh, see if there's any more answers. And then we're going to move on. 11 here, so, blah, blah, blah. Oh, they're scrolling down. I got to scroll down. That's why I can't see it. All right. Maintain happiness, independent. I read directions. That is a massive superpower. Just to let you know, reading directions. Hello there. Come on in. Please grab some food in the back. We got some pizza back there for you and for Junior. Certainly help yourselves back there. Love to have you come in and share this time with us. So grab some pizza right back on the desk back there. These are superpowers. Reading directions, that's a huge one. Okay, I don't know who said that one, but that one was brilliant. Just to let you know. And if you guys want to participate, you can take a picture and share some of this too. But this is a big deal. Just trying to get to know who's in the crowd and understanding what's going to be happening. Now, as far as what we're going to be talking about today, there's really three main things that affect you buying a house. Just three. Now, there's a lot of nuances to this, and there's a lot of pieces of the pie that can actually make it a little tough, because we don't always think about credit in certain ways to help ourselves get set up for success. But these are the three main things. It doesn't matter if you bought your first house or if you're Mark Cuban and you own entire blocks. It doesn't matter. It all comes down to credit, income, and assets. And we're going to walk our way through what that means to you, because that's a really big deal, getting yourself set up for success. And you know what the hardest house to buy is? It's your first house. The first one is the hardest one. Why do you think the first house is always the hardest house to buy? What's that? That's part of it. That's part of it. What else would make it the hardest?
You may have like a lot of things you have to work on before you get.
Okay, you have a few things, like if you've lived wild and free up until now, and now we have to fix your credit to actually move forward, then, or we might have to work on income, or we might have to work on some other things. Yeah, that's a possibility. What? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You have to settle down, right? You have to find a place that you want to stay in, right? Mm-hmm. But you guys like Richmond, right? You don't like Richmond? Oh, okay, all right. So where are we moving to? Where's our place? Are we going to the beach? Are we going to the mountains? Where are we going?
I'm looking at Prince George.
Prince George? Okay. Okay, not extremely exotic, but you know. But we'll take it. Prince George is right around the corner. We'll take it. Any other thoughts with that? Okay, so all right. So let's just dive into credit real quick. So credit actually plays one of the most important roles in buying a house, and it's actually what opens the door. Now you can get yourself into trouble with credit without even knowing you did it. Anybody have that problem? I have. Okay. In my case, it was a medical bill. And I'm the guy that, until you get the notice that has the hand-stamped collections on it, I'm not the one that pays attention. And my wife is super conscientious. She'll take the thing and she'll open it up and actually look at it. I just kind of put it on the table and it just kind of sits there until we get the pile, and then I look at it. Anybody else have that method of running their finances? Okay. So just to let you know, that's what causes bad credit. That's not necessarily good credit. Because credit is really a responsibility score. How responsible are you going to be to repay this loan? Because the bank is going to lend you and take a huge risk on you. They want to make sure that you have the ability and the desire to actually follow through and pay them back. And so they're going to look at your history to find out what it is that it's taken to get you to be responsible and actually pull some of these things off. Now, I'm going to tell you that for me, it was a little hard. When I bought my first house, I'm going to tell you it was a little hard, because I wasn't terribly good at making sure that my bills were on time. And quite frankly, at the age of 24, I don't know if I really cared a whole lot. I just needed a house. Okay, I had 2 kids. I know I'm overambitious. 2 kids at the age of 24, and I had 1 on the way. So I needed a house. I needed a yard, right? I needed a place for the kids to play. I needed a place to where if kids do what kids do, you understand where I'm headed, right? Okay, I needed that place. And so we went out and we had to figure it out. Now, with my situation, we'll talk a little bit more about that as we weave in and out of the conversation. In essence, it's going to come down to opening the door first. And you have to open the door by showing a sense of responsibility with your credit. Now, can you do it with no credit? I get that question an awful lot. The answer is yes, you can do it with 0 credit. But that doesn't mean 0 credit and then bad credit. Okay, because we have to drown out the voices of the past and reestablish credit and reestablish good voices, so that in essence what we can do is get ourselves into a place to where we can buy this house. Now, some of that takes time, because if you've had, like I did, a few years of wild and free, you know, it wasn't in my nature to take the stuff out of that stack, open it, and find a way to make a payment. It took a while. It took a while for me to build that responsibility. That's some of the stuff that you're going to have to try to figure out how to do. If you're in the no credit or the lower credit scores, it is going to be developing some responsibility to get you to the point to where you can actually buy this house. But if I can do it, you can do it. I mean, there's a great meme on Facebook that says, if a potato can be vodka, you can be a homeowner. You know, that is true, okay? That is true. There is a lot of benefits to being able to make this work. Now, you're going to have to think through how to get there. We're going to help you. If you can actually start, your credit scores go from a range of about 300 to about 850. That's the score. Now, does anybody here use Credit Karma? Okay. Anybody here use CreditWise? You use CreditWise, okay? Any other free services that you're using? Okay, just to let you know, there are 16 versions of FICO. So what you're looking at may not necessarily reflect the true score that we look at when it comes to a mortgage statement. FICO 2, 4, and 5 are the 3 versions that we're using to help you with the mortgage process. They're very different than what you would find with CreditWise, with Kredit Karma, with some of these other apps. It doesn't mean that those apps are bad. It just means that they're providing you with a service and they're considered to be promotional. Now, have you ever noticed that when you open up a credit card, all of a sudden you start getting emails or calls or texts from other creditors? That's because of CreditWise and Kredit Karma. They're selling your information. You're allowing them to monitor your credit, and they're selling your information to other creditors to ask you, once they know that you're looking for credit, they're going to sell it to other creditors so that those creditors can throw their hat in the ring and say, we want to be a part of the credit for you. Okay? Not a bad thing, but just keep in mind that that's what they're doing. Now, they provide you with a benefit which helps you monitor your credit, but you have to be very careful with what you're doing and how much you put into that, because the promotional scores will move wildly fast. And sometimes there can be a difference between Kredit Karma and the versions of FICO that we use of up to 100 points. And so if you make a payment on something and your score jumps, it may not have jumped as quickly when it comes to the mortgage scores. Now, the mortgage scores that we use, like I said, you can get anywhere from a 300 up to a 850. What you need to know is that most of the first-time homebuyer gigs that are going to provide you with a benefit, down payment assistance, grants, anything like that, they start above 620. They start in this category right here, 620. Doesn't mean you can't buy below 620, but just understand that if you're buying below 620, many times what happens is that you're putting yourself into a situation where you can force your way through that door, but it's all about risk and reward. The more risk the bank is going to take on your behalf, the more they're going to expect from you in the terms of interest rates, maybe closing costs, other factors along those lines. So it's not necessarily that you can't buy, it just becomes more expensive. Now, does that mean that you need to wait? Not necessarily. Because when I bought, I was in this category right here. In fact, I was closer to 620 than I was to 720. But what it did is it helped me establish the home. It helped me stabilize my family. I had to make a payment for housing no matter what, right? And so I was making a payment into something that I got equity in, plus I locked in the price of that home. Because if I had waited a couple more years, that home value, when I turned around and sold that home 3 years later, I had $60,000 worth of equity in the house. Not because I had earned it by making payments, but because the value of that home had gone up. It's the same thing that you can be missing out on if you wait too long to make that happen. Now, obviously you need to be prepared. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that as we go along. But 620 is really where you start opening the door to getting yourself into situations where you can improve yourself and you can actually get some of these grants that help you. Now, what are some of the things that are included on your credit report? Anybody have a car payment? No car payment? Oh, you're lucky. Anybody else? Car payments? Okay. I've seen car payments as high just this last week as $1,500 a month. I hope that car sings to you when you come out in the morning. I hope it changes the baby's diapers. Because at $1,500 a month, that is a crazy amount. You might end up living in that car. Okay? So be careful what you're getting into with some of these cars. Now, you can, when it comes to making choices about your credit, you have to think about what your goals are. What are your goals? What are you really trying to accomplish? And it'll be worth your time to maybe flip over one of these pieces of paper and actually draw out what your goals look like. Visualize them. See what it is that you're trying to accomplish. because that'll help you make defining choices between whether that car is really important or something else is really important. And that'll actually guide your choices as far as how you handle credit as well. Because do you get offers on cell phones all the time? Did you know that a cell phone is about the equivalent of 1% of your total cash to close? That cell phone costs what? $1,200 new if you were to pay cash for it, right? Did you know that that's about 10% of what you need to actually close on a house? That's a big deal. And if you understand what your priorities are, maybe buying a secondhand one off of Amazon is not necessarily as bad a deal. I did that for multiple years when I finally realized what was happening. And do you know that your cell phone plan is a whole lot cheaper if you don't have a contract? Did you know that? It's a huge deal. So understanding the dynamics of the financing can also play a huge role into this, because let me tell you what, I don't have a contract anymore. My payments to Verizon are actually 30% less than most everybody else. Guess what I can do with that extra 30%? I can either use it to help my credit improve, or I can save it if I'm disciplined enough, which is hard, right? Because I love candy corn, and candy corn just came out. We got a problem here, okay? And it's not going away for the rest of the fall. But you can make a decision on how you want to handle your credit. And this is a really big deal, because the better your credit gets, the better your terms are going to be when it comes to buying a house. And the better it's going to be for you as you start getting into the process, not only of establishing the home, but also getting to the point of building wealth. Because sometimes the biggest issue is a mindset issue. Let me share a story real quick. I helped a guy buy a house 3 years ago who was homeless. He was living in the shed behind the house of his brother's house. Completely homeless. His credit was jacked up. Nobody in his family for 3 generations had owned a home. Nobody. Nobody for 3 generations had owned a home. It took some time because I had to show him how to fix his credit. I had to show him how to put together a budget. I had to show him what was important, just like we just got done talking about. And when it was all said and done, it took him 2 years. But he moved out of that shed and he moved into his own house because he was able to actually understand what was truly important. And this right here helps you define it. Because the bank is going to be looking at these pieces right here to understand if it is truly a priority to be responsible for what you're trying to accomplish. Now, that doesn't mean that you haven't had a black eye. Has anybody had a black eye when it comes to finances? Or a real black eye? You could have had that too, okay? But I mean, I had a ground zero. I almost lost everything. 2013 was a terrible time for me. One of the worst times I've ever been through. We were eating out of the food bank. I couldn't afford gas. I couldn't afford to eat. My well went out at the house where we were at. We were without water for 3 weeks. This stuff is real. This stuff happens. Guess what? My credit fell. But then once things started turning around, once things started getting better, we started improving our situation and improving the credit to the point to where now I could actually go out. My credit score right now is above a 780. I'm above a 780 right now. I can go out and get pretty much any terms. But do you know how many credit cards I have? 1. Do you know what my cell phone bill is? Month to month. I don't have cable. All I have is internet. I stream everything. I have cut my bills down to where I am lean and mean with my bills. Okay? But now you get where I'm headed with this, is that sometimes it takes some drastic approaches to figure out what it's going to take to help you accomplish the real goal that you're trying to get when it comes to credit. Now, this is a really good question here. This is going to get you in touch with your 9-year-old self. And so go ahead, pull out your cameras and shoot this up right here and give me your answers. I did not come up with this question, but I feel like this question is brilliant. And so the question is catching up with your 9-year-old self is if you were a hot dog on a deserted island and you were starving, would you eat yourself? This is a huge question on the meaning of life right now. And you can see that right now 60% would rather starve than eat themselves. Who knew that, right? I'll give you a couple more seconds to finish your answers because we're still at 62% and growing where you'd rather starve than eat yourself. All right. All right, let's talk about income real quick because that's the next stage in what it's going to take to help you buy this house. Okay, it's going to be really the next stage. And you are actually, this plays into two sides. It's not just income. We've talked a little bit about it with credit. Income is a big part, but it's really about how you manage your income. Because your debt to income proportion plays a huge role in how you're going to buy this house. Here's my case in point. Did you know that at one point in time, I had a $400 cell phone bill?
By yourself?
By myself. 400. I have 4 kids. Yeah. Guess what? Did you know that once I got rid of the contract and we bought all the phones on Amazon, do you know that my bill was cut in more than half? And I no longer had a payment on these cell phones. Now I no longer had a payment on anything. All I had was the service. And we just changed over to another service where we provide our own services, and it's $15 a month per person.
What's that? I need that.
And let me tell you what, my family has not missed reception. It's not missed reception. It actually works just as good as Verizon. So income plays a huge role, but it plays a role in how you manage your situation because unless you're King Solomon, money is not endless. Unless you're Pharaoh of old and you have slave labor, money is not endless. We only have so much that we can work with. And starting off and buying your first house is terribly hard, but you can do it. You just have to be realistic about what to expect and how to get there. And here's the big thing that you need to think about. If you cut out your TV diet, completely cut out your TV diet, it makes it very clear what you can do. And I'm going to be very clear about this because here's the funny thing. When we cut cable off in 2013, when I was going through my financial ground zero, I no longer wanted X, Y, and Z. It didn't make as much sense to want X, Y, and Z because I didn't have the pressure coming from the TV to help me want X, Y, and Z. I wasn't seeing it on a regular basis, and so I didn't need it anymore. I didn't feel like I needed it. So cutting TV off was a huge deal for my entire family. It changed the course of our family because we were now allowed to use the income that we were generating to do what was truly important. 2013, my kids were in school. My youngest was his age. I got them all through college. Over the next decade, I put them all through college because I focused my entire hourly, my entirely wage, everything I was doing on something that was truly important to me. Now, as far as how do we make this happen right here, you can see self-employment, hourly, production, piecework, commission, and salary. Okay, this is a continuum right here. More risk, less risk. If you're getting paid $50,000 a year and it doesn't change, that salary, that is the most predictable income ever. But the downside with $50,000 in salary is that it's $50,000 in salary. There's no way to grow it. Whereas if you work a little overtime or you do a side hustle and do some self-employment, or maybe you do some production work or other things like that in sales, you can actually get yourself a little bit extra income to actually help you grow your business. Because think about it from this standpoint. Think about it from this standpoint. Safety and security are fantastic to have. But if you take a little bit extra risk and do a side hustle that you're good at, you may be able to build a little bit extra right here to save up to make the next thing happen. I know people who have delivered pizzas on weekends that had a full-time job, delivered pizzas on weekends because they had a little extra time and they were able to save up enough money to be able to put the down payment on the house. Now, we look at income differently in each one of these categories. The self-employment, we have to look at averages because we don't know when you're self-employed, 1 week it's great, 1 week it's not great. When you're in hourly, if you're working 40 hours 1 week and next week you're working 37, next week you're working 60, there's fluctuations, right? Or maybe you're doing piecework. You're getting paid by the delivery for each pizza. Or like a lot of the people who do transportation, like the truck drivers, they get paid by the load. Or they get paid by the mile. All those have different calculations that we have to work at. And the more variable your income, the more we have to average your income. Meaning that we have to look over a period of time, see how much time you've gotten at that job, can you handle that job, and what are the peaks and valleys? Because landscapers, their peak is in the spring. It's not in the winter. In the winter, they could actually be off a good part of the winter. But in the spring, they're like really busy. They're working extremely long hours. Same thing with brick masons. The minute it rains, they can't do anything. They have to sit back. The same thing with delivery. You have a high season at December, starting with Thanksgiving, going through December. But what happens in January? It levels off a little bit. Okay, so that's why we look at these pieces differently to understand what you can do. And it doesn't mean that we can't use all of it for income. It's just that we have to be able to see that you can sustain it. So if you're working a side hustle, you're working a side gig, you're working self-employment, you're working a second job, whatever it is, time frame is usually what we have to look at. Now, the more variable, it can be a year to 2 years. Self-employment, for the most part, it's going to be 2 years. So if you're doing a self-employment gig, and it's about what you report on your tax returns. It's not about, the gross number of what you received. It's about what you got to keep. Very different. Whereas with hourly, if you're making $18 or $20 an hour, we're going to use the $18 or $20 an hour, but we're going to average it over time. Now let's put this into numbers that we can use. Okay, let's say that your total income for the year is $40,000. Doesn't matter which one it is, we're just going to use $40,000. Okay, and that's your gross number, that's your pre-tax number. I can use 50% of that entire number to help you qualify for your house minus your existing debt. So you guys got phones, pull out your phones, take $40,000, put $40,000 in there. Multiply it by 0.5. That is your total that I can use for all of your debt. Now, divide that number by 12 because we want to make that a monthly number. Okay, what does that number come out to? From what? 1666. Okay, now subtract your car payment. Subtract your credit card payment. If you have a credit card payment, subtract your credit card payment. Subtract student loans, if you have student loans. Student loans, okay? You're lucky if you don't have student loans. The worst case of student loans I ever saw was $960,000 in student loans. I think they teach at the university now, that's what I think. Now, having said that, see that number that's on your phone now? That is the number, if you're making $40,000 a year, that is the number that you can use now towards your house payment. So that's going to establish where you're going to be able to buy this house. Now think about that. That may not necessarily be Short Pump. That may not necessarily be Glen Allen. Maybe that's a little bit further out. Maybe it is Prince George. Maybe it's Hopewell. Maybe it's other places of town that have some pieces to be able to help you get set up. Those are pretty important places to kind of understand. So playing into the income plays a huge role. It also plays a huge role in which type of loan program you're going to qualify for, because the grants, the down payment assistance programs, they have income caps because they want to make sure that they're helping out people of need. When I bought my first house, I was making $15,000 a year. Now, I bought a house that had been sitting for a while, like 50 years. There was graffiti in the kitchen. It was abandoned. It was an abandoned house. It didn't have any windows. It didn't have any doors. I had to put windows and doors in before closing. I was making $15,000 a year. But I bought this house in a very remote area. So it was like going out to the Northern Neck. You guys been out to the Northern Neck at all? Into one of those little itty bitty towns where there's nothing there? That's where I was at. Okay, except for this was northern Michigan on the Canadian border, where it's really cold. Okay, average snowfall, 265 inches a year. We specialize in snow cones. Okay, you get the idea. It was a very depressed area, but that's where I bought my house. That's where I bought my house, on $15,000 a year. Can you do that in this area? Probably not. But that doesn't mean that you might not be able to find something in Prince George. Doesn't mean that you might not be able to find something in Hopewell. Doesn't mean that you might not be able to find something in Dinwiddie or Amelia. Some areas are getting a little bit more expensive, but having said that, there is opportunity if you're willing to look for it. And these are possibilities of how to help you get there. Now, when we're talking about assets, we're also trying to help you understand that you need to save a little bit of money for this process too. Because even though you can get a grant or down payment assistance to help you get into a house, which is what I did with mine, I got 100% financing. 100% financing. Yeah, it was tremendous. All I had to do was pay for the legal fees to do the transfer from the seller to the purchaser. That's all I had to do. Well, today, those legal fees are about $8,000. So you have to save a little bit of money.
But it depends on the price of the home.
But it depends on the price of the home.
Yeah, so the cheaper home you buy, the less closing costs you have.
Correct. But here's the thing, is keep in mind some of the stuff that you're doing, because if you put together a plan, a spending plan, you may be able to identify places like I did where cable didn't make sense anymore, or my cell phone plan didn't make sense anymore. And so then what I could do is I could start saving money in those spaces. Now, savings relative term if you have kids, right? Because they kind of like to eat every time there's food around. At least 3 times a day, right?
Kids think you rich.
What's that?
I said kids think you rich.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. They're the most broke best friend you'll ever have.
You also use tax returns towards your closing costs.
Yeah, yeah. But there are ways to help you get through these too, because there are specific programs out here. Virginia Housing has a program. Federal Home Loan Bank has a program. They have a grant that starts up every year in January, where they'll give you $12,000 to $15,000 to help you buy a house. That's a big number. That covers all of your closing costs, a good part of your down payment, and you can piggyback it with other grants. And if you piggyback it with Virginia Housing, you can get $20,000 to $25,000 to help you buy this house.
And Chris can help you do it. That's your guy.
And at the same point in time, there are local entities like Housing Opportunities Made Equal, downtown Richmond, and Southside Community Development that have grants that are $10,000 to $50,000 that can help you get into homes. Southside Community Development actually builds homes, and they sell them to people in need. The last one I helped with that, she got a $50,000 grant to help her get into this house. Now you're stuck with a house that they're building. You're not going to go to Prince George. You're not going to go to, they're building in what they call revitalization areas. Not necessarily a bad thing, but just keep in mind that that's what they're doing. And if you like that house and you qualify for that house, you will get a massive grant to help you get in the door. And that may be the strategy for your first house. Because consider this, was my first house my forever house? Was it a stepping stone? It was a stepping stone. It was a total stepping stone, because when I sold it, I was able to take the proceeds. Now, remember the hardest house is the first house? Do you know why? Because you got to come up with a cash. But the second, once I sold it, I had all of this equity that I was able to take and put onto the next house And it made it so much easier once I had sold this house to go into the next one. That's one of those assets that's referred to right here. Because I had the equity, I was able to take it and I was able to push it into the next one. There's a lot of room to be able to grow this, but the hardest one, the journey worth taking, is your first house. Now, there's traditional assets, there's checking, savings. This is what you build up just through the natural course of actually saving money. You can actually pull money out of a 401k if you have a 401k or some form of retirement, stocks, or some gifts. Sometimes we find that family is willing to help out in some way, shape, or form. Nothing wrong with it. I think that's fantastic. It may not be a ton of money. It may be $100, it may be $1,000, it may be whatever. Whatever that is, that can actually help, and you can use that towards this. There are places where you can crowdfund too, where you can get people, like if you're about to have a baby and instead of having a baby shower, you want to have somebody contribute towards your crowdfunding towards buying a house. That is a possibility, a way to do that too. Don't bring me a baby gift. Don't bring me a baby gift. Put it right here because I need it for buying a house. Those are methods that you can use to help you get set up for some of these ways to help you buy and get into a house. Now, the types of loans that are available to you. We've been weaving this conversation in and out throughout today. Yeah.
Why do like owners, like say for instance you be renting for a while, why y'all sell after people be renting for a while?
Why do they do what?
Like you know how you could be renting a house and then after a while the person wants to sell the house. So why do you guys do that?
So why do people sell houses if you've been renting them? Okay, so sometimes what it is that they're trying to buy a different piece of property, and they can take advantage, and you can do this too once you own the property. You can take advantage of what's called a 1031 exchange, which is a financial benefit on your behalf to actually transfer your wealth into the next property without having to pay taxes on the gains. Everybody who does real estate, whether it's one or two or hundreds, that's what they do, is they sell the property to move it into the next one. And so what that means is that they may have a lot of equity in the property that they bought because they may have bought it from you a long time ago or bought it in a long time ago, and they've sat on it and they had it paid for. Okay, and then what happens is they take that money and instead of paying taxes on that money, they move it into a next property, and they can move it into multi-units where they can have 4 or 5, like a duplex, triplex. Okay, or there's other ways that they can move this money around. So they're not trying to totally upend your life. They're just trying to make their lives sweeter by doing this. And you got to remember that the journey is worth taking when it comes to buying your own house, because once you own your own house, nobody can do that to you. It can't be done. Okay, unless you don't make your payments, then they can take your house. But as long as you're consistent and make your payments, you're going to keep the house. And if you do the right moves, and you're financially responsible to do the right moves. Do you know that my average international buyer, I have a landscaper who is making 25 bucks an hour. 25 bucks an hour. He owns 6 homes. 6 homes. And 5 of them are fully paid for. And he gets paid $25 an hour. Now you talk about living meagerly, he lives very meagerly. He doesn't do a lot of crazy stuff. His stuff is actually very, very low key. Doesn't go out to eat a lot. He has kids. He has 3 kids. But what he's done is he was smart with his money. Is he focused his first ambitions on buying that first house, and then he spring-loaded it to buying others. And he got in very easily. We can show you the path to do this. It's not hard to do. You can actually do, for your first house, you could do a duplex as well. A lot of people do duplexes for their first house. And with a duplex, what they do is they live in one side and the renter on the other side pays for the mortgage for everybody. That's a great way to do it. You have to start changing your mindset to thinking more like an investor and start thinking like an owner instead of thinking like I'm going to be continuing renting the rest of my life. And this conversation, I'm going to tell you that having you guys invited to this thing is a huge benefit. They're trying to help you guys. They're trying to help lift you into these places. Now, the loan types that are available here, you have government and conventional. There's two general categories. Government, I started my first house with this one right here, FHA, because my credit wasn't so great, and I needed a little bit of love, and I needed some really easy terms. FHA got me in the door. And that one actually had piggyback all sorts of great things, including cash flow, not cash flow, it had including help for me to get into the house. I got 100% financing. There were all sorts of programs to help me get in there. This one is very, very easy on terms. Now, this one's for veterans. For veterans. Anybody here a veteran? I know Ron's a veteran. You're a veteran? Okay, you can take advantage of this. This is the best loan known to mankind. It's 100% financing. 100% financing. It's fantastic. This one right here, USDA, it's kind of like the beef. Everybody heard of the USDA beef? Okay. It's designed for rural properties. You're not getting any steak with it, but you can get a house out in the country. Okay. And then the bond one, these bond ones are like the first-time home buyer ones. These are the first-time home buyer ones where you can get a grant, down payment assistance, other programs like that. Okay. Conventional is for when your credit is a little bit better. So if you start off with one of these government loans, these are fantastic loans. Long-term, financially savvy, you want to end up in a conventional because they have lower cost and better terms. Long-term, it's the one that helps you out the best. Okay, so these are really good programs to help you get in the door. And you can, maybe not necessarily qualify initially for conventional, but maybe you can qualify for FHA. Maybe you can get in with a VA loan. Maybe you can get in with USDA. There are benefits to each one of these programs depending on where you want to go. And if you take advantage of some of the down payment assistance programs through either Housing Opportunities Made Equal, Southside Community Development, Federal Home Loan Bank, or Virginia Housing, which are the ones that are designed here in Virginia, you can many times get in with very little money down. And these are fantastic programs to help you get to the next level and at least establish the home. And then you can improve things as you get into time. All right, I am wrapping today up with this, and I have been talking for a very long time. Is there anything I've missed when it comes to this that you want to hear more about? Anything that I haven't talked about? Not sure yet. Okay, good. On the table, you'll see a QR code. That QR code leads you to the digital version of all the stuff that we just talked about today. That QR code right there will take you to all of the stuff that's in the packet in front of you, as well as to the to everything else that's going on around you. Okay, and so this is extremely important for you to kind of help set yourself up for success, and it's worth your time. It's worth your time to download this and keep this where you can actually take advantage of it. Now there's a piece of paper that is on your in your packet that looks like a Monopoly board. You guys see that one? Let me just kind of go through that real quick as far as the process. That one right there, yeah. This is the most common process that is used for buying a house, and this is extremely important to understand what that process looks like, because the first step in the process is really understanding where you're at. And maybe you're not ready at this exact moment, and that is entirely okay. It's entirely okay. But you still want to get going on the pre-approval, which the pre-approval is to understand where your credit, your income, and your assets are, so that we can help you, maybe not today, but we can put a plan for next week or next month or next year to help you get to the point to where you can make this work. And so it's a really good idea to go ahead and do that. On the flyers that are in front of you, there's my website right there. You can actually go to my website, and Rachel is a real estate agent that can actually help orient you as far as buying the house. But you can go to my website and you can pick a time. My calendar link is on the website. You can pick a time for us to have a conversation. And it can be as simple a conversation as, hey, I was at your event and I just want to know more and help me understand what I need to do next. Or it can be, let's fill out an application, let's do the whole thing. Let's go down the road, and if we hit a next steps, at least you'll know what the next steps are. Okay? What's that? I am, yeah. My office is in the back here. Okay? But I mean, we can do it virtually. You don't have to come all the way out here. I do have Zoom, we do have FaceTime, we do have Google Meet. Okay. I'm not, I don't look techie, but I can still be somewhat techie. okay? So that process is extremely important. The first step that you're going to see is actually setting yourself up to make sure that you do the pre-approval first. Now, why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? Rachel and I both work 100% by referral. What does that mean to you? It means that we devote ourselves to our clients' needs before, during, and after each transaction, because we want to make sure that you have success in what you're looking to accomplish. We want to make sure that you're set up that we can lift you to help you get where you want to go. Because if we can work by referral, we don't have to do what all my counterparts are doing. My counterparts are cold calling, they're trying to buy leads, they're trying to do stuff like that, where it's constantly salesy, 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 salesy. Whereas I don't want to do the salesy stuff. If you don't want to work with me, I'm okay with it. I want to set you up for success, because really, long term, I depend on you to refer me business. And if I can do it that way, I can do stuff like what you saw here. I can make pizza all morning, I can make chips, I can make candy, put it all into little boxes, you guys can take it with you, and then we can have great conversations about how to help set you up for success. And that's really what we're trying to do when we work by referral, is we're really trying to help set you up for success. Okay? So that's really what we do. Now, I do have a YouTube channel that I post to. My most recent short that I put up there is "What Would Mark Cuban Do?" If you wanna join in the conversation, you can join in the conversation on my YouTube channel. This event here is going to be posted on my YouTube channel, just like the last one was. And 2 nights ago, I actually did a workshop on first-time investors. So if you want to see my long form, that stuff is all there, but I do have a lot of shorts that actually get loaded in there as well. Having said that, I know that you're going to leave here and have some questions. And Rachel's business card is on the table. You've already seen me. You have my information in the flyers. You can reach out to any of us. Just reach out or talk around. Talk to the family, and they can help you.
And so where I come into this process is after you work with Chris and he gets you financially set up, I'm the person that takes you out. We would set a meeting after you guys work with Chris and you're like, okay, I'm ready to actually get this started. Let's buy a house. Then you and I would set a meeting up. We would go over kind of more of the fun stuff. What are you looking for? What kind of house do you want? How many bedrooms do you want? What location? And then we work together to find you that house. And I'm the one that handles the offers, writing the contracts. I advise you through all that. But really that whole process starts with Chris.
But it's such an essential piece to have a very good real estate agent on your behalf, because really what you're doing when you're paying for a real estate agent is you're paying for somebody who can negotiate for you. That's really what you're paying for. Yes, she's going to help you find the home. She's going to do all this other stuff. But if something's not exactly right on the house and you don't know how to handle it, she knows how to handle it.
I'm also going to protect you from getting into like a limit or a money pit or something where I feel like it's not going to be in your best interest. And I'm going to protect you and advise you on that.
So y'all will take care of us. I like that.
Yeah.
Tell Mr. Beaver, yeah, I take care of. Yeah.
We're not going to put you in a headlock. Let's put it that way.
So, 2 things. One, I watched your YouTube last night. I lost a lot of sleep because I watched a lot. So, 2.5 hours. The tone was well. Chris and I did 2 deals together, and Rachel and I and Susan and I bought 8 houses with Rachel in 18 months. 18 months.
That's a lot of work.
Okay? So you wouldn't be here. I wouldn't tell you to come here with them if I didn't have trust. You know what we're doing. I mean, both of them very helpful. 18 months, 8 houses. Okay? So
You're very kind. You're very kind and clueless, but
I'm telling you, what you didn't remember here, he's got so much broke material. It's all unbelievable. I lost 2 hours last night.
it's not edited, so if you're looking for something that's polished and really cool, I'm not that guy.
The content was right on point.
Okay. So
What's
Dad jokes.
yes, Father's Day dad jokes. Yes, I do that. I do that a lot. So, well, anyway, you're welcome to stick around and hang out. We do have some pizza left over. Yes, I didn't make it. I know it's, but we would love to have you take it with you, and because I can't eat that much pizza. Yeah, we'd love to continue the conversation with you and do whatever we can to help serve you and serve you and your families. Because let me tell you what, just like this guy that was living in the shed, where we helped him buy. And here's the great thing: is what he did by buying his first house. What he did when he bought his first house, he changed generations to come. And not just his, because his brother who was renting the house went out and bought a house too. So we motivated not just him, but his whole family to get out and change the destiny of their entire generation going forward, entire life of the people. And this is really a big opportunity for you to be able to do this. And we'd love to serve you in the process. So thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.